Welcome back, everybody. Max Scoville here for IGN. We're live at E3. I'm with Nathan from Cappy Games.
How's it going, Max?
It's not too bad, man. How you been?
Last day of E3.
Yeah.
Really crazy show. Super exciting.
My throat feels like a driveway.
Yep.
There's a fun fact about LA, and that it is built in a desert.
Yeah.
And it's
apparently.
full of cars.
Yep. And it's also like smog capital of like North America as well.
One of the top 5 best places to breathe and then try to talk.
So let's have a video game show here. Why not?
Yeah, let's do that. You got Below.
We do.
What's going on with Below?
Below is a game we've been working on for a while. It's a game about exploration. It's a game about survival. And if you manage to do those first two really well, it's also a game about discovery. You play as this lone, tiny wanderer arriving on an island with no kind of set goals. We don't tell you what you're supposed to do. We don't tell you why you're there. The game is about the player exploring the world, exploring the systems, and trying to figure out for themselves what the game is really about.
Now, is this procedurally generated?
Yeah, the whole game is, it's definitely inspired by roguelikes, and so we're taking some of the pieces of roguelikes and the genre that we really like and putting our own little twist on it. So there is a big part of the game that is entirely procedurally generated, and death is also permanent. But the way that death works in our game is that instead of playing the same life over and over and over, you're actually playing a sequence of lives. So when you die, a new wanderer arrives at the island, and the things that you have done with your previous wanderers kind of persist. So let's say there's a magical lantern, for example, and there is one magical lantern in the game, and you manage to survive, 5 layers through the depths. At a certain point, you die. If you want to get that lantern again, you actually need to find your corpse, pick up that one lantern, and then carry on. You can choose not to do that.
It would not be totally erroneous to be like, this is sort of like Dark Souls.
There is definitely, that's the easy comparison for sure. And we're always kind of like a little bit iffy on reducing to it's a game like, but really, it is about sword and shield combat. It is about survival. There are elements of it that are very, survival focused. So right now, Chris, our creative director, who's playing over there, he's at a fire pit, and fire pits are where you're able to cook. So if you have a vessel and you have water, you can start crafting soup, and then anywhere else in the game, you can actually just craft tools as well. So you can take sticks and cloth, and we're trying to base it a little bit in reality, so to speak. So crafting is how you kind of stock up to delve deeper into the depths.
So I think a lot of people get kind of like scared off sometimes when you're like, oh, it's procedurally generated. It's like, so it's random, but this is still like handcrafted. Like.
Absolutely. We spent a really long time trying to figure out how to do procedural generation in a way that fit the aesthetic of the game, which is really important to us. But also, as you go through the depths, right now we're in a very kind of natural cave system, flora and fauna. It's very organic, and the procedural generation has to work in a way that makes it feel right. But as you go deeper through the depths, you might end up somewhere that's not so natural. And so the procedural generation also has to work that way. And the reason why we're doing kind of procedural generation, not only for these single-screen dungeons that you're seeing, but also for almost the flow down the depths, is because we want to make sure that players are constantly feeling like exploration is required. That even though they figured out maybe how to light torches and how to see more of the depths or how to use their sword and shield to fight, there's always an element of newness. There's always an element of the unknown. You're not going to be able to just memorize random kind of like, oh, the enemies are over here, so I can just avoid them this way. It's always going to change, but it only changes per life, not kind of as you're going through. So if you go 10 layers down, you can still go up, and those levels will still be the same.
Gotcha. Yeah. Are there boss fights?
A winky, nudgy, nudgy. We're not showing any of them.
Okay.
But there is a whole lot of the things that you would probably want to see in the game. We also want to see in the game. And
this seems totally like a game that like you guys made it because you want it.
Yeah, that's actually like right before we were here, Chris and I were talking, and Chris was just explaining how he feels really good because this is the exact game that he wants to play, and everybody at the studio feels the same way. And I really do think that in this kind of like era of renaissance of video games in a lot of ways, being able to make the work that you love means that I can sit here with Max Scoville and talk crap about my game, and I'm excited about it. I'm genuinely interested in it, and I can speak honestly about it because it's the thing that we want to see. It's the game we wanted to make, and being able to work that way, being able to develop games that we want to make, that's why Below happened. That's why Super Time Force happened.
That's awesome. Like I love that you guys do that. And I think that there's kind of like, as far as indie games go, there'll be the two guys who are in a garage somewhere and they come out of the woodwork once every like 3 years and show something off. And like you guys have an office. You're like a hey everybody back at Cappy. There's like 23 of us. We're working on a bunch of different games at the same time. Below is definitely our biggest game ever, most challenging game we've ever made, and it's super exciting to us to be working on a game kind of this scale and scope, scale also of this kind of size of screen. We put a ton of effort into trying to figure out how to take advantage of a 1080p screen, not in the fidelity way, but in the like number of pixels, and taking the camera and zooming it out and using depth of field and light and the overall aesthetic to kind of create a totally different vibe. Yeah,
so it lets us do things like it lets us put a lantern in the game that does really illuminate the space, but it is a little bit magical, so it'll also show you secrets that you might not have necessarily seen from a little bit more of a distance.
How like secrets are kind of a big part of this, like
Yes.
how does that come into play? Is it just like
the game is really built around rewarding players who take their time to explore, who think about surviving, because you have hunger, you have to eat, you have thirst, and you have to drink. Eventually, temperature will also play a role in the game. So you need to think about going to the fire pit. You need to think about like what is crafting in the game.
Right.
And really, crafting is a relatively like logical and real. Like the game is actually grounded in some kind of reality. You take a vessel with water, you add ingredients to it, add a fire, and you make soup. And that's cooking and crafting are a really big piece of the survival element of the game. And you start off the game in a very natural area where certain things are very plentiful, but you might get to areas where you might not find all of the things that you need to craft those soups.
No, so like obviously this is a game that's about a lot of exploration and kind of experimentation and just really like there's a certain kind of like there's an intrigue, there's a mystery here. So I don't want to be like what's the end of it look like, but we've seen a certain kind of cross section of the game already. Are there parts in the game that just look completely different?
Yep. Hopefully Chris will make it there in the time that we have.
Is there a water level?
Yeah, there is a whole lot of different layers of the dungeon. There are a whole lot of different areas in the depths that go from natural to entirely unnatural, that go from maybe hinting at other like different enemies or other people that exist in this space, as opposed to like these kind of purely magical creatures that you're seeing right now.
Now, so like this is a game that you start out and it's got that kind of like it's got that Team Eco sort of just here's everything you need to know right in front of you.
Yep.
Is there any kind of a story that's in there?
Absolutely, yeah. The interesting thing for us is that we went really deep on the story and lore. We wrote out the whole thing. We know the narrative from A to Z. Notice I said Z instead of Z. Shout out to USA right there.
That's an American letter right there.
So yeah, we have a story. We have crafted a story, and we're not telling you the story. We're trying to show you hints of the story for you to find and discover. And we're really interested in making a game where we have this kind of like framework that we've built, but the player could create and craft their own completely different story. And that's, again, it all comes down to how much you explore, how long you survive. A big part of the game is that survival is not only about like crafting. It's also about dealing with the fact that when you get hit by enemies, you might start bleeding. If they have sharp weapons, they will cut you. And if you, like a regular person, if you get cut and you don't deal with that bleeding, you will eventually over time die. So every hit in this game puts you really close to death. And so it's very cautious. And you need to also explore how to deal with situations where you are cut and in a combat scenario.
So this is like this is a very complex technical game, and I think at first glance you can be like, it sort of looks like Zelda. It's pretty simple, but it's like clearly there's a lot of the stuff going on.
That's exactly what we want with the game. We want a simple, focused game that instead of going super wide, goes super deep. That's really, really important to us, to make a game that has all of these little, relatively simple systems that interact in a really interesting and challenging way for the player. Like, we're really trying to make a challenging video game, a game that requires players to learn from their mistakes.
Okay.
Because we're not telling them what to watch out for. Where there's no kind of hints or like, the lantern will show you some stuff, but you need to learn all about how to fight these.
That seems to be kind of what's hot right now. Like people really do like to have a game that has that old school kind of sensibility of like you're gonna get your hand slapped with a ruler and you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean you need to fight the way that Chris is fighting in a way.
Yeah.
You need to think about putting your shield up, poking around your shield, retreating when you want to retreat, changing your weapons.
I was gonna ask about the combat. Like we've got a bow and arrow, we've got a sword, a shield.
Yep.
Is that kind of it, or?
So there's two different styles of combat in the game. There's the sword and shield combat. You always have a shield. You can always put it up and defend it. Where you can always use your sword. You have a whole bunch of different kind of nimble attacks that you can do with it. And then you can find other weapons, and those weapons go in a slot on your back. But you can only have one other weapon, and that weapon is usually two-handed and usually changes the playstyle quite significantly. So let's say you have a bow and arrow, you really like your range attack, but you find a giant hammer. You need to decide, do I want to keep using my range attacks, or do I want to smush enemies with a giant hammer? You can't take both.
Damn. Well, I mean, like, I don't think I expected this to be this, like, in-depth. Like, you guys are clearly, like, you're digging yourself deep in there, you know?
I mean, it's like the way that we talk about it a bunch is that, like, part of the reason why it's taken us a while to get to this point with the game is that we're kind of like excavating the depths of this world, and every time we hit different layers, and some of those layers are more challenging to figure out for us, and sometimes it's the aesthetic and figuring out how, like, because for us, I mean, we're extremely driven by making games that have an aesthetic, that have a style to them, and all of our games are very different stylistically, but hopefully that thread of aesthetics first, for example, the soundtrack is being composed by Jim Guthrie, who did the soundtrack for Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery and the soundtrack for Indie Game the Movie. So we get a chance to kind of, come back to working with Jim again and make a completely different style of soundtrack that then enforces the aesthetic and also enforces the tone of the game, the atmosphere of the game.
I feel bad because we're like talking over the beautiful soundtrack, but like I checked this out at PAX last year and like I played it for a minute. I just took the headphones off and I'm like, dude, I can't do this right now. Like, this is not a show floor game. This is something you need to really kind of get yourself into.
It is a very interesting thing for us because we really want players to get into it, to put those headphones on or just crank up a good stereo. We want it to be, ideally you play it in a nice dark room on your laptop or on your Xbox One with a big-ass TV. It's super, that is the ideal scenario for us. We know people are going to play it however they want to play it, and that's totally cool, but whenever we make games, we always kind of like to talk about, like, what's the, with Sword and Sorcery, it was like kind of while sipping a scotch. And then Super Time Force, it was like, pounding beers with your friends. Like, those are the different scenarios that we love. We love thinking about how people might want to play it in the ideal scenario.
What's the appropriate pairing here? Like, what's the drink that goes with this?
For me personally, I don't actually want any intoxicants in my system while playing this game. It's a little bit stressful. We love like putting down the blinds, making it nice and dark, turning it up really loud because the music and the tone and the atmosphere is very different than an action game. It's very deep and atmospheric, and that I think that needs darkness and that needs quiet so that you can really like just suck it all in.
One thing I'm curious about is like so much of it's about exploration, both of like the world and of the systems. Is the crafting, like, are you going to find stuff and you don't know what it does and you kind of have to like experiment with it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There is a hint system in the crafting, and there are this series of audio cues that are going to let you know when you're on the right path towards getting the right crafting elements. And it sounds really pretty and you can really tell what's going on. But a lot of the actual like combinations are kind of, we're trying to be a little bit logical with it. We're trying to say, like, if you want to craft a torch, how would you craft a torch? It's not going to be these like magical weird things that just come randomly in. It's sticks and cloth and charcoal and things that you need to create a fire. The crafting is like everything in the game. We trust players and the community that we will hopefully build around the game to figure these things out for themselves and to be able to survive long enough to get to this next section of the game that Chris is showing, which is going to be a lot different than the kind of natural, like lush, plant-filled world that we were just in.
So it's called Below. It's kind of about just going downwards. Like you're just going deeper. Are there any like Metroidvania elements or points where you'd want to be like backtracking at all?
You definitely. Oh man, beautiful. Video
Busted.
games. Video games. There we go.
All right.
So as you can tell, the game is still in development.
Yeah, you're working on it.
Yeah, Chris is just gonna hop right back into that section again. We've been working super hard on the game, so obviously there's a few little bugs in there. But what can you do, right? It's when we come to E3, we come to E3 with a game that we are making. We don't spend 6 months on a super polished little, which would be a lot easier, definitely. But it's sorry guys back home, shit happens.
It happens.
Yep. And you can tell we're playing for real right now.
Yeah, no, that's
no,
kind of it.
No faking on that.
I like that. Here we are again.
Yeah.
It's Xbox One and PC.
It's definitely coming to both.
Is it too heavy for 360, or is it just kind of?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. I mean, because
Yeah.
you look at it, and it's like I think there's that misconception where it's like this doesn't look. This is a.
Oh yeah. Because it's about style over polygons, because it's about tone and atmosphere over fidelity. It's a very heavy game. The lighting and post-processing and all of the effects that we put into it are actually really, like even just the tilt shift, the camera blur that we're using to put the focus on the player. These are things that we're like actually doing in the camera the right way, and they're pretty heavy. And also at this point we like to look forward. I think it's really, you need to be Bluepoint to be able to do Xbox 360 versions of Xbox One games really, really well.
Yeah.
And big respect to Bluepoint, one of the best studios out there right now. That's not us.
Yeah.
We're gonna make it for PC. We're gonna do it for Xbox One. It runs great on both.
Are we ever going to see this on other platforms?
It's coming to Xbox One on console first.
Okay.
It's coming to PC as well. Microsoft have been great partners. I will give them a literal ton of credit. From Phil Spencer to Chris Charla, like those guys have been huge supporters of the game, and getting a chance to Phil is actually like part of the reason why this game got announced at E3 a couple of years ago was because Phil loves roguelikes and is super excited to be able to talk about roguelikes on stage at E3.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I mean it's great. They've really the interesting thing about it is that they've just kind of been like, cool, really want the game. When it's ready, let us know. And that's the way you want to make video games. We really think that like time with your project, the years that we put into this game have really come out on top and really been worth it for us. And to have the support the whole time, no pokes and like, hey, when's it coming? Just same way with Steam. And I mean, we've had that experience with every platform nowadays. They just want to see developers like us make the best stuff because they know that's what the players want.
You don't rush something like this.
No.
Now, this is like.
This is an era like because there's no text, we just make up names for it. The players will get to make up their own names. This is the Catacombs. You're fighting against weird kind of like glowing eyes humanoids as opposed to black smoke monsters. It's a much different space. The combat changes much more to one-on-one.
Oh, wow.
There's traps like that, like an Iron Maiden that will sneak up to you and kill you immediately. And you will die a lot in this game, right? There is a heck of a lot of death and dying in below.
So yeah, here we are. Like this is sort of the respawn sequence type of thing.
When you die, you start up as the next wanderer, and the next wanderer comes after the last. So Chris managed to achieve some things. He unlocked some doors, got down to the Catacombs. When you play the game for the final version of the game, your achievements with your last life will persist, and so you're building upon the successes of past yous, essentially.
Okay. We've had like a really like a huge kind of renaissance of this type of game lately. It's
because it's fun. I mean, they're fun to play. They're fun to make.
Yeah.
And that fun to play translates, I think, a lot to the players.
Do you guys have a release window?
Yeah, we're definitely fighting towards it. We're hoping to get it out late this year or very early next year. It's now at a point where when we play the game as a team, we kind of sit down with all the guys and girls and just jam on it. As players, we love it, and that getting to that point means that we can see the finish line. We can see the full game. We can see
what to play, and it's going to be a big video game. It's not.
That's awesome.
What
So-
we're playing here is very compressed, very shrunk down
Yeah.
version of what the full game is going to be.
So there's that infuriating misconception that there's some kind of like dollar per hour value to games.
Bullshit.
You heard it here. Do you have a price point? Like, this is your biggest game. Are you gonna be?
So we have a really hard rule at the studio, and the hard rule is don't put a price point until you can play it from start to finish. You need to know what the final experience that the player will have is before you can say this is worth $10 or this is worth $30. I mean, obviously we have frameworks. We know the kind of bubble that we're floating around
Right.
in, but we really believe in like finish the game then decide on a price, because that's how do you know how to price a game when you're at alpha?
Yeah, that's
You could be adding a ton of features. You could be taking a ton of features out.
Dude, this is why I love talking to you. Like the amount of transparency that you bring to a conversation is
I mean,
refreshing. So
we started the studio 10 years ago with a bunch of friends from university. We had never made video games before. We built a team together of people. Most of us had never made, like most of the studio's first video games were made at Cappy. And that transparency is just kind of, I don't know, we don't know any other way. And I think that that's part of what players are interested in too. If you're watching this stream right now, you're watching this show, you care about video games. And you kind of, it's good for games to have stuff like the Double Fine documentary where you get to watch the craziness of it. And for
it's
us,
not all carefully manicured. You know,
it isn't. And it's whether you are making the next Call of Duty or you're making Below or you're making Cuphead, the way that game development works is very similar. And these people are working just as hard, and they're trying to be just as creative. And I think that unfortunately a game like Call of Duty can't be necessarily as transparent, but that doesn't mean the stuff that they're doing isn't as they want to be that transparent.
Yeah.
They want to show the players and the fans that much.
Well, Nathan,
we just have the luxury of doing it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Always
and
a pleasure,
chatting,
my
man.
friend.
This is great. Yeah, Below coming soon.
Check it out.
Nathan's good people. For all your E3 coverage, keep it right here on IGN. I'll see you guys in a minute.